The Best Night Ever by Captain Chrysalid. Chapter 1. Unmitigated, unprecedented, unabashed, unsolvable. Disaster. The gala was a disaster. It was, Prince Blueblood reflected as he dragged himself to bed. Truly the worst night ever. Closing face versus the pillows, his body took a resounding sigh. At least it was over. You'll be seeing rainbows, oh, oh. Equestria girls are kinda magical. Boots on hooves, bikinis on top. An alabaster hoof silenced the infernal electronic device, transmitting its unbearable pop culture, sugar-sweet ear pollution. Sapphire Shores. He hated Sapphire Shores. What was the radio even doing on that station again? He must prefer coloratura. Blueblood found himself on his back, eyes bleary but open, staring up at the delicately tiled ceiling. The damn old machine had done its job and woken him up, at least. Pulling his regal and royal self upright, he gently massaged the hoof into his forehead, willing himself to deal with the post-gala fiasco he had abandoned last night. Celestia's triumph, celebrating the glorious founding of Canterlot, overrun by a horde of crazed critters. Early out of bed, he paused only to glance outside at Les Palace Gardens, and then to ring a bell to summon the palace grooming staff for his morning routine. It most certainly would not do to arrive at breakfast in a disheveled state. An antechamber served his purpose well, with a pair of unicorn mares arriving quickly to groom away the night's frustrations and prepare him for the supposedly casual meeting he had with his aunts. Blueblood closed his eyes, not needing to see the servants gaze their work. They had been doing this for years, after all, just as he had. Same thing, day after day. Similarly, he resisted the impulse to doze off. No. His thoughts turned to the ruined gala, specifically to the foolish mayor who had showered him with low-class cake, and then the cascade destruction that turned the noble menagerie into a house of cards. Compared to the structural, artistic destruction, the stampede of wild animals that followed was really almost an afterthought, an insulting addendum to the devastation. The royal guards had mysteriously disappeared soon after, leaving dazed and confused double ponies and guests of honor to stagger around. Lost and confused, unable to process the fact that their evening had been so thoroughly ransacked, a tribe of savage griffins could have well walked through, plucking tapestries from the walls and jewels from the necks of the aristocrats, and not a single pony would have batted the eye. What's worse, his cousin just got engaged to that infernal captain of the guard. What? That's my headcanon. Shining and Cadence got engaged at the gala. Something would have to be done to mitigate the aftermath. Blueblood mentally prepared to meet with the royal Baudelaire as soon as breakfast was possible. The image of the gala needed to be repaired. His precious image as well, of course. It was meant that they needed a patsy. Yes, a public face to blame the disaster on. The social circles of Canterlot would do the rest, if given only a rumor or two. No royal host would need to be involved. The question was, who to string up? It needed to be someone believable, but also somebody already unpopular. The noble families had to be so unconsciously want to blame this pony, or these ponies before a hoof. He would have to find a superior pleasure in pitying on his would-be date for the evening. No one cared about a mare from Ponyville. One didn't bait a tiger with cheese. Oh, just wait until she gets a boutique in Canterlot. Let's see how well you handle that, Blueblood. Dismissing the two groomers with a haughty wave of his hoof, Prince Blueblood glanced for a moment at the nearby full-body mirror. He looked fine. None the worse for wear, despite last night. The bump on the back of his head had even disappeared. How fortuitous! Now for his attire. Opening the walk-in dressing closet, he saw his shortened diner jacket and blue bow tie hanging, waiting for him. Pressed and prepare, it had been left in a place of honor, with the expectation that he would come for it later tonight. The prince's expression darkened immediately. What was that doing there? Granted, he had many dinner jackets, but he had ordered this one from Hoyty specifically for the gala. Last night's gala. Idiots, he grumbled, pushing aside the formal wear for a pale silk collar. I am surrounded by fools and idiots. Every quarters of the palace opened up to him, but the guard only became noticeable as he approached the pantry and dining hall. Truth be told, the prince was in little mood to see his beloved aunt, not after her pointed disappearance last night had sounded the death knell for what should have been to him the most magnificent night of the year. He had personally invested much in the entire affair, bringing together select patrons of the arts and arcane who had sought him out as their patron. Now these guests were humiliated, and no doubt silently erased at the farce the night had become. Lost in his thoughts, paying little heed to his surroundings, Blueblood sat before the table, hosted by his exalted princess aunt. In fact, both his great aunts were in attendance, a somewhat rare occurrence. Twice in as many days, Blueblood didn't remember the last time that had happened, but he didn't let that distract him from his sullen demeanor. It was an impotent displeasure as well, for Celestia damn well did as she pleased, and there was little any pony could do or say about it. The Princess of the Sun sat at the head of the table, cheerfully and contentedly munching on low-class oats and apples. Again! Luna had finished eating what was actually and effectively her dinner, and remained quietly lost in introspection. She often partook a glass of wine before going to sleep for the day, a rather strange custom, though Blueblood recognized the vintage of the bottle kept cool by her place on the table. Same as yesterday. A true creature of the night, that one. Not that it was of any business of his what she did with herself. Blueblood placed an order for tea, with milk and ginger, and, freshly important, yucca. Waiting for it to arrive, he pondered how he could possibly chide his immortal and all-powerful relative without actually sticking his foot into the proverbial fire. She looked so irreplaceably, yet suddenly smug about something this morning, like she had some plan or another that she expected to pan out. Last year had just been one thing after another, and Blueblood had come to associate his aunt's good morning moods with some trouble or some looming appropriately upon the horizon. Prince Blueblood. A cultured voice interrupted the noble pony's thoughts. Proper place. The prince greeted the royal chamberlain, an officer of the household. The elderly unicorn was just finishing his meal, shouted by his ever-present assistant, Keeper of Seals. Not that Blueblood remembered that pony's name. I trust you are looking forward to this evening's gala, the elder pony inquired. I have heard you are hired for the Catalan Chambers Orchestra Company. I look forward to their rendition of the entry of the Prince of the Sun's Light. Blueblood opened his mouth to agree, when he caught the wind what was being said, besides the compliment. What? He asked, dumbly, quickly shook his head. What was that just now? The gala, Prince. Proper place repeated. I look forward to it. Instantly suspicious of some sort of joke or trick, the likes of which his dear aunt had become quite fond of recently. Blueblood glanced around the room. Sure enough, no ponies seemed to be deriving any perverse enjoyment from the conversation, nor were they even invested. It took a moment to settle in, but it quickly became clear that all the ponies in attendance were seeing and eating at the exact same places as yesterday. It was normal, really, but also gave him a strange sense of deja vu, even with this conversation with proper place. Hadn't they had it yesterday? Of course, Blueblood settled on saying, still a bit wary of some further choke in his suspense. He glanced at Celestia once proper place had finished and excused himself. But aside from whispering something to Luna, godlike princess hardly seemed interested at all. She was a good actor, to be sure, and could simply be playing some larger joke. Yet, it seemed both uncharacteristically rude and mean-spirited to not only effectively facilitate the ruin of the gala, but then to rub his face into it the next day. It was a celebration in honor of her, after all, and how she founded Canterlot. She was the sun and the center of their world. His participation was an effort to demonstrate the depths of his affection and admiration for her, while, yes, also furthering the political game of the lesser, mortal royal family was a part. He wanted to speak, to demand to know something was afoot, but had cowed, dared not to. Instead, he determined not to play along. If Celestia had said things that to mimic the day before, then so be it. Seemed strange the proper place of all ponies would play along. But Blueblood would not. He would stay in. Night came and Blueblood just couldn't believe what was before his eyes. It was the gala. The bloody damned gala for the night before. What in the saunders hairs? The curse muttered silently as he peeked out the window, observing the procession of guests arriving at the castle. It couldn't be. It just There it was. There it was. There was even some sort of curious impromptu musical number breaking out before the castle gates. That was odd. On this show! But such things happened in Equestria from time to time, or so he had heard. Having sequestered himself all away all day to catch up on his duty as Grand Veneur, as pointless and powerless that title really was, he had purposely avoided any chattering or rumoring of this gala prank that he had been certain was being planned at his expense. He even thought it was a little gay game. He would overhear some server talking about the gala tonight, and it would be an exercise in self-restraint to keep from correcting or disciplining the little pawn. The gala was yesterday. It was over, and it had been a flop. Blueblood even waited patiently for the angry and charged letters of those who had sought his patronage, now demanding he do something about the debacle. As there was anything he could do, except to help assign blame, direct it as much as possible away from himself. Yet no letters came, no word of insulted nobles demanding to see him. No nothing! Just like Princess of the Gods, just like yesterday, when he expressly cleared his entire day's schedule. Suspiciously watching as the musical number outside died down, the Wonderbolts themselves beginning their scheduled performance, Blueblood felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Aside from his actually getting some work done, formally approving yet another minor expansion to the borders of Everfree, the entire day was a spot-on ringer for the day before. Now there was even a full gala on the way. Madness! Lord Prince. The gentle rapping of the door of his study would no doubt cause the frayed royal to jump out of his cummerbund. Hadn't even wearing one. Lord Prince, the princess has inquired to your presence at the gala. She has. Blueblood's rump hit the desk, scattering scrolls and maps onto the floor. Yes, Lord, the voice called, but then Bard's in went on welcome. Are you well enough to attend? Yes, he decided, raised his voice to be heard. Yes, I shall attend. Pressing an ear out to the study door, he waited for the sound of footsteps to die down before opening the door. This is all simply too strange, too bizarre. Yet rote and routine called to him. He descended down to royal apartments and summoned his preferred stewardess. Quietly stunned that he was going along with what had to be an insane prank of some kind, Blueblood went through the motions of being washed, groomed one last time, and finally fitted into his custom hoity dinner suit. At last, one of the nameless chamber fillies presented him with a reflection in his mirror. It looked perfect, of course. Just perfect. Simply perfect. Same as yesterday. Late to the gala now, he endured the heralds announcing his arrival in the grand oratory. Normally, this would be a moment to relish, to stand for his peers aspirant, and the cream of society and across aristocracy, to have them look up and measure his presence as he descended to join them. Princesses knew he had savored the moment yesterday, and intended to play coy for a moment before he finally began to mingle. It was all a great display, after all. The repeat performance, however, filled him with an unfamiliar unease, and quickly concealed anxiety and confusion. He tried to remember what faces he had seen and recognized yesterday when he had been announced. But this was different than before. He wasn't arriving at the right time, the same time, and he saw some ponies missing and extras present. One in particular. He ignored her for a moment, and saw Celestia at the intersection of stairs leading from the oratory to menagerie, 3 rings of the palace where the gala proper was being held. Next to the regal princess was a petite purple unicorn in a blue dress covered in 5-pointed stars. It took Blueblood a moment to recognize and realize he had to be the bright student his aunt often waxed on about. Usually he compares it to himself. Twilight Sparkle, if you recall the name. The mayor who was, he had been told, both a magical prodigy and most certainly not a layabout who would shirk her responsibilities to take a trip to the Cocopago, as if he did that every year instead of once in his entire life. There, too, was the Master of Rivers with his wife, and the High Steward of Stables. And then there was her. Just as he remembered her from yesterday, which was much like today. She was a beauty to look at, to be sure. Pristine white coat, vivid violet mane with a distinctive feminine curl, actual crystal slivers, and an intricate layered dress in shades of red and gold. And, yes, she was looking at him with the exact same expression he had noticed at the other gala. The same gala. Wide-eyed, If he had found the prince of her dreams, he felt a cruel temptation than he had before, but quashed it. Something was going on. Blueblood screwed his eyes shut, made a beeline for Celestia. This couldn't be a game. This couldn't be a trick. That meant magic. Ah, Prince Blueblood. Celestia greeted with a warm, welcoming smile. Wonder reminded him of when he was a foal, as he had found him wandering about her garden outside. I'm happy to see you could make it. I was a bit worried when I heard you'd been in your study all day. The implication being, it isn't like you.
Yes, well,
He stammered slightly, trying to think of an excuse.
there were matters that needed immediate attention.
He quickly bowed his head, in a public show of respect and deference.
Princess.
Celestia's smile was gracious, and as usual, she tried to skip through the formality. This is my student, Twilight Sparkle. So he inclined her head towards the young unicorn mare. A little tentatively, Twilight extended her hoof.
Charmed.
Blueblood said, taking her hoof and favoring the filly with a suave grin. His body and mouth were mostly working on automatic at this point. He still needed to pull his aunt aside.
I have heard so very much about you, Miss Sparkle.
Likewise? She could rephrase it as a question. Not so much for social niceties, it seemed. While Celestia had painted her as a mirror of magic and diligent academic study, that does seem matter at the moment.
Princess.
He didn't dare cause a scene by calling her auntie anywhere near prying ears.
I have a bit of a problem I'd like to speak with you about.
He then added legally,
In private.
Nephew. Celestia didn't have the same qualms, and her tone was hitting and reproachful. Whatever it is, surely you can wait until later. After all, the guests have arrived. Tonight is a very special night. Let's not ruin it with work. Just mingle a little and enjoy yourself.
But
He tried to interject a little, pleading into his voice. Later, I promise. Celestia put her hoof down and became silent. She shooed him off like a disobedient child. Go, have fun.
damn it. Of course.
He acquiesced immediately, lowering his head.
Perhaps later.
Glancing over his shoulder, he saw that insufferable unicorn watching him. Her eyes were intelligent and calculating, now, and not quite so blinded by the awful infatuations before. All too cognizant of what happened, the last time, Blueblood gave one last farewell to the princess's little apprentice, and retreated to the menagerie. A certain measure of sloth aside, Prince Blueblood was not a fool, nor was he ignorant of the magic that was his birthright. There was something truly strange going on. This meant it was best to observe for the moment, as to formulate a proper response. What happened before? He felt a little sick of thinking of things in this kind of weird loop. Surely couldn't. It wouldn't repeat itself if he just removed himself from the picture. Perhaps doing so would also reveal some clue. Perhaps just so he could fix things by chance. The latter was realistically his best bet. The menagerie was a series of prominent rooms in adjoining salons. Each of the main chambers were named for a prominent constellation. The very same one that adorned the ceiling of each hall in the form of a great mural. Facing north was the bear, east the scorpion, and west the hound. Within each national menagerie, the walls were decked in the finest tapestries and frescoes. The most elegant of marble statues were on display, and stained glass windows provided a rich ambiance. Blueblood mingled in the loosest sense of the word. Autopilot. His body switched to autopilot, doing what it had been trained to do. He hardly spared a thought for the mares and gentlecolts he exchanged empty greetings and idle chit-chat with. He was looking for anything particularly strange. There had to be something with a hoof in the situation. He also did his best to seem occupied, to keep that one unicorn mare from getting involved. There was no time to waste for her. The northern menagerie are sorry. While the guests seemed to be causing a scene upstage. The perpetrator was a neon pink mare whose legs seemed to have been replaced with strings. As gross and out of place as this one seemed to be, there wasn't any apparently offensive magic about her. Plus, how could an Earth be involved in anything like this? Whatever this was. I have powers you only dream of. The prince moved on to check onto the Eastern Menagerie Scorpius. The smell of the grand banquet was alluring, but Blueblood found his royal appetite blunted by the uncertainty of the situation. The eastern quarter of the gala, like the west, was partly open air and bordered the most public section of the gardens. The view of the night sky was particularly striking here. The sections of the colonnade had been prepared to allow guests to sit on the grass and relax while they ate. Everything seemed normal on this front. As though he made a more thorough look around, Blueblood noticed that peculiar food vendor he had visited yesterday. If yesterday had been real. Either way, she were there now, and exactly where they had been before. He snorted to himself as the common fare on display. It wasn't even a matter of price, the banquet being free. No noble pony with a sense of decorum would be seen indulging in such plebeian fare. It was shocking even to contemplate and remember that he, Blueblood, paid so little attention to his surroundings. He had partaken in such things. Luckily, no one seemed to remember about that other day except him. Satisfied there was nothing sinister going on, he elected to investigate the Western Menagerie Canis. This area was quite popular, as it included the VIP Wonderful section of the party. It also very well stocked bar. Yet here too everything seemed normal. Ponies were chatting and enjoying themselves. That puddle on the floor was still present as well. And really, were the staff slacking or what? Inexcusable. It was beneath him to remain one of them while the party was in full swing. He would have seen to it tomorrow. But there could be no tomorrow. It was soon well after this that the commotion began. There was a shout, a crash from the Menagerie Asare, and a mad rush of critters of all shapes and sizes. A frightened buzzer switched low, forcing Blueblood to throw himself to the floor. Yes, this was what had really driven home the end of the gala. Once again, the palace guard were all gone. Once again, there was a sound of breaking statuary and panicked bemoaning of guests as they rushed, pell-mell from the crazed animal horde. Once again, Auntie had disappeared. For the second time, the gala was ruined. Yet, as he dusted himself off, Blueblood found himself watching the surroundings with a strange calm, certain detachment. He had seen it before. The surprise was gone, and yet he wasn't resigned. He was curious, confused, and perplexed. It's like watching a painting being made, knowing already what it'll be like. The fascination was in the technique, not so much as the result. In an apathetic gaze, he quietly returned to his bedroom in the royal apartments. You'll be seeing rainbows, oh, oh, oh. Equestria girls were her kind of magical. Boots on hoops, bikinis on top. The hoof reached for the gilded gold and silver radio, fumbling for a moment before turning it off. Blue eyes opened, wearily. Blueblood inhaled and exhaled and sat up in bed. He looked down and saw the same sheets. He was even waking up in the same position. The song from a moment before still crawled, unwanted in his ears, echoing in the sleepy morning lucidity of his brain. Slipping out of bed, he took a moment to look outside. The grand garden stretched out below. He could see the old groundskeeper already up and working, checking and fixing the hedgerows. It was a beautiful morning. The rising sun was shining brightly on another glorious day in Canterlot. Another glorious day. Ringing the same bell to summon the same servants, Blueblood began his morning routine. It just wouldn't do to arrive at breakfast looking disheveled. He was the prince, after all, the one member of the royal family who wasn't immortal, the one member of the family who couldn't command the sun and moon, and love, and friendship. He had powers of his own, yes, but he had not just sort that would wow and inspire the masses of Equestria, peasant and noble alike. At least, he could do what little he did while looking good. On a lark, he spoke to the servants' fillies this morning.
The gala is tonight, he stated with a sigh. Isn't it?
The two mayors exchanged surprised and unsure looks. They weren't used to conversation with him, and perhaps wondered if it meant trouble. A second or two of silence followed before one of them dared to answer. A light blue filly with a soft red mane. Yes, my prince, she hesitantly replied.
How nice,
He said without emotion, and held up his right hoof.
Continue.
Like before, but not quite like before. He hardly paid attention to as they finished with him. Soon, he was presentable, dressed, and ready for breakfast. The castle was the same as always. Except now, it was the same as always. Blueblood felt a shiver through his frame as he entered the dining hall. Saw everyone just where they were before, eating the same things as before, chatting about the same things as before. He blinked hard, felt a rush of relief as he realized Celestia was here. Well, he would ask her now. Well, not quite now. He didn't want to make a scene. Soon. Very soon. A server came by, and he placed an order for tea, with milk and ginger. A dish of freshly imported yucca. It was tasty in and of itself, but it was refined and expensive. He had been hoping to start a trend with it. He also had clients to doing business in the plant. There was that too, but also brought back pleasant measures. But it's Blueblood. A cultured voice spoke up, just like before, and the time before that.
Proper place.
Prince greeted the royal chamberlain, an officer of the household. He was present with his aide. None of them had the faintest idea that Blueblood already knew what the esteemed unicorn was about to say. I trust you are looking forward to this evening's gala. I have heard you hired from the Canterlot Chamber Orchestra Company. I look forward to the rendition of the entry in The Princess of the Sunlight.
It should be quite fitting,
He replied, glancing over the long table.
once the princess shows up, and if nothing goes wrong with all that.
Strangely, Princess Celestia chose that moment to cover a small smile with a sip of tea, one of her ears twitching.
Aha!
Blueblood wanted to yell.
Either you know what's going on, or you planned that mischief in the first place. Ah, bloody aha!
Naturally, he said not a word of it. Instead, he listened quietly to the conversations around him. Normally, he just tuned it out, only paying attention when something immediately or obviously important. This time he really listened. A particular note was what Celestia and Luna were whispering about, though it was mostly the former whispering and the latter listening. Eventually, Luna finished her drink and dinner and excused herself for the rest of the day. Blueblood took that opportunity to speak up.
Auntie,
He said comfortable, using the word here amongst the household and servants.
I would like to have a moment of your time, if I may.
The serene princess was unreadable and affable, as usual. Of course, nephew. What seems to be the matter? He coughed politely.
I would rather discuss it in private, if I may.
You may, she permitted. Was meant not now, but quite soon. Blueblood waited and listened, and prayed. So, if I understand you correctly, Celestia said, craning her neck in amusement, you are experiencing the same day, starting from when you wake up?
Yes,
Blueblood replied, blushing at little how his story sounded. Fortunately, it was just the two of them, alone in her sitting room. It was amongst the most elegant of apartments in the palace, as befitting the Princess of the Sun. It was here she entertained private guests, heads of state, ambassadors, and other ponies and personages of the highest honor and status. The entire room seemed to give a gentle glow. Celestia was not one for fiery in the strictest sense of the word. Instead of, or at least for the last few centuries, her preference had been for a simple, dignified, yet majestic aesthetic. And ending after you go to sleep, after the gala?
yes.
The ray of the unicorn raised a wing to briefly cover her smile. And no one realizes this except for you?
Again, Blueblood replied, yes.
Celestia gave a thoughtful hum as she pondered his words in the situation. I must say, my little nephew, Blueblood's heart leapt at the assurance that all his knowing aunt had the answer to this problem, like all problems. She gave him a serious look. I just don't see where this joke is headed. Blueblood's face fell, and he nearly collapsed onto his hooves.
This is no prank.
He actually raised his voice, just a little.
Auntie, please.
He lowered his head, all but groveling.
I'm not playing a joke, I'm being serious.
Nephew, Celestia began, and gently looked at his eyes with her hoof under his chin. You're clearly distraught. No magic on Equestria can have the effect you describe. Even Discord himself couldn't cast such a spell. Her eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. Probably.
The gala will be a disaster,
He vowed, looking at her and willing her to believe him. Really?
oh yes, he warned. Cakes will fly and animals will run rampant. You'll disappear and...
He deflated.
It'll all just be ruined.
He finished, not even knowing what was wrong with the gala and how, even with him avoiding that unicorn, things had gone downhill. And Celestia, his great aunt Celestia, didn't seem to care. Blueblood hung his head in defeat.
And you probably already knew that,
He realized. You give me too much credit. The Princess of the Sun cooed gleefully. The fun in life is not knowing what's going to happen. The wisest of ponies relish a little nonsense now and then. Still, her good mood faltered a bit. But unsurprised. How did you know?
I've seen it happen. Twice.
For a few pregnant seconds, the two royals, Alicorn and Unicorn, sat in silence. Nephew, Celestia finally said, placing a compassionate hoof on his shoulder, you are free to search the royal libraries for an answer. But I think the problem isn't with magic. The problem, she tapped his chest, is in here. Or maybe here. She added, gently rapping her hoof against his forehead. Perhaps you should see a specialist? For a second time, Blueblood's spirits sunk. This time, they shook his face with him as he planted the cushions on the floor.
Auntie!
Celestia's personal physician and apothecary, Willow Bark, was a learned and much esteemed graduate of her school for gifted unicorns. She had a remarkable penchant for all forms of medicine, traditional, holistic, and magical. Blueblood watched her back as he stared as a series of arcane sizzles materialized on the surface of paper. This sort of magic, he didn't understand himself. He just hoped that whatever Willow saw, it was something useful, good or bad. I see you. See, the pale-coated unicorn mare muttered, her hoof rubbing absently against the pocket of her left coat. I see you.
Well,
Blueblood snapped, growing impatient, just sitting in place with a circle of runes and salt.
what do you see? What's wrong with me? Is it parasites? Oh God, it's parasites! They're in my brain, all thing!
No, not parasites. Little Barker assured him, eventually turning around to look him in the eye. Nor is it liaisons, contusions, concussions, or infractions. You're in perfect health, Prince Blueblood.
Then what did you see? You see?
He repeated, impatience making him rude.
Ruder, really snarkier.
I see you have not had your wisdom teeth removed. Willow exclaimed. May I schedule for next week, next month?
No!
Are you sure a zebra hasn't cursed you?
Oh, I something won't house it, Blueblood answered, left eye twitching.
Well, sir, I can't detect even a hint of magic on you, harmful or otherwise. The response came not from a physician, but one of Blueblood's own trusted subordinates. Not without his own resources, he immediately left the castle and called together, by fiat and demand, every learned scholar and his employee he could find. Fortunately, most learned scholars under his employ were versed in magic, rather than unrelated to pony physiology or psychology. Hence why Blueblood currently sat, wet and miserable, in a tub of magic suppressing water, in an enchanted blinder, and kept preventing use of his horn. He was personally de-enchanted in every way possible. There wasn't a shred of magic that wasn't London's own natural energy field. A beeping machine of strange earth-pony construction whirred and hissed, and vomited out a steam of paper covered with scratched lines.
I want you to be sure.
The demand came from Prince of Equestria. Blueblood's underlay desperately raised an eyebrow. Yeah, we're done all we can see neutral, sir.
I'm not moving up the audience.
But sir, what about the gala?
The gala can go straight to.
You'll be seeing rainbows, oh, oh. Equestria girls are kind of magical. Boots on hoops, bikinis on top.
Click.
Blueblood forced himself out of bed with a long, slow sigh. Well, that didn't work. No, I'm not doing hard reset. The outside was the same as before. Another beautiful early morning. Inside was the same as before. The chime of the bells to summon his servants sunk a pit into the prince's royal stomach. The pair met him in the antechamber, and just like before, they hailed to get groomed and dressed for the day. One simply couldn't attend breakfast looking like a damn slob after all. Eyes open, and watched the two chambermaids for once.
The gala is tonight.
He asked, directing the question rather neither of them in particular.
Isn't it?
The mirrors exchanged looks, just like before. Blueblood noticed one looked particularly nervous, while the other one seemed mostly surprised. It was the latter fellow who eventually replied. A light blue mare with a pinkish red mane. Yes, my prince.
Oh, very nice.
He groaned, and peered more closely at the mare. Normally he wouldn't have cared, but since he was talking to her anyway, couldn't help but be a little curious.
What's your name?
Light touch, sir. She bowed her head respectfully.
And you?
Yes, the other mare. The unicorn mare with a dark brown coat and straw-colored mane. She lowered her eyes and turned her head.
Speak up already,
He commented. Excuse her. Lighthouse interrupted, trying to sound differential. She doesn't talk much. Her name's Sandy.
Wonderful, he deadpanned. Well, may as well get ready for my big, wonderful gala day.
Whoa, when did I suddenly bring in a character from a Harrier problem?
Announcing His Highness, Prince of Equestria, Grand Vizier, Lord Blueblood of the House Blueblood.
This time he went to the gala. Why? He wasn't even sure. It didn't matter, but he went anyway. He didn't try to avoid her, either. In fact, after taking note of the musical number at the castle gates, he waited in the royal oratory, chatting with two business ponies from Manhattan. One eye on the clock. He took note of when she entered the room, looking about the many noble personages with a mixture of nervousness and self-confidence. She was clearly certain she could fit in even if given a chance. She looked the part, like a true lady of the court. Blueblood remembered how they met before, outside by the garden. Experimentally, he lingered longer than before among the gathered ponies, waiting to ascend the stairs and meet Princess Celestia. The purple pony, Twilight Sparkle, was up there too, hanging by his aunt's side. Blueblood wondered for a moment if she planned to just hang around Celestia all night. She didn't seem like the type who wanted to reinforce her own position by flaunting her close relationship with the princess and the stouts of nobles and lords. What was she up to? Put that question on the back burner. Rarity. Rarity was demurely not mingling in on her own, but he could see her keeping a discreet eye on him, not particularly caring just how much his decision would end up bringing ruin to the gala. Blueblood graced her with a small, polished smile. Excusing himself, he headed for the rose bushes. It would be just for a few moments. Then he cast her coyly sniffing a rose. He used it to introduce himself, just like before. The gala wanted to screw with him. He could screw with the gala. Old habits, it was said, die hard. He intended to enjoy himself, not care one whit by the end of the gala. It had proven harder than he thought. In his heart, he wanted the gala to be a success. He wanted the power and prestige of being patron to the successful clients. He wanted supplicants to approach him. He begged to be given a hoof in the door next year. He wanted compliments for his contributions to this most high society of all events. He wanted things to go his way. He wanted... Well, it seemed fate didn't care what he wanted. At least, however, he wanted to not have lament the disaster to come. Yet, it was always there in the back of his mind. Contrary to what he had expected, being around Rarity didn't make it easier. It made it harder. Despite being his charming self and having quite a little fun at her expense, the mirth of watching her expression fall as he took the rose she had clearly expected to give for herself. Then, ruining her dress with that spell. Then, making her pay for the carnival food. Wasn't he just for the fun following through? On repeat. It was all so stupidly Hal. 2 days ago, he had been laughing inside what he could put her through. Now, it was already stale as a rotten millet. The cake hit his fate, and Blueblood realized he didn't care. At least time, the walls didn't come crashing down. Not until after the animals attacked, and everyone turned into a blind panic. No, Blueblood just watched and counted as 20,000-bit tapestries ripped free and fell to the ground. A million-bit tricella sculpture of Luna, inlaid with gold, shattered. And then finally, a single-piece marble pillars, each a priceless original from the old castle, toppled. Snorting, a bit of apple cake dribbled down his nose to his upper lip. Instinctively, his tongue darted out to wipe away the frosting and flakes. And actually, wasn't that bad? Prince Blueblood, royal scion of Equestria, Lucerus Veneer, and marker of stupid little lines on maps. He sighed as he drank. He retreated to the wonderful VIP lounge as soon as the gala started. He didn't even want to see Rarity, or any other familiar faces. Over and over he'd been through that mess. He didn't want to know. He didn't want to care. It was all just so pointless and stupid. Here he was, again. At the gala, again. Hey! Look, if it isn't the prince! Blue eyes lifted from staring, finding a gold and blue markings on a light tight suit. Wonderful suit. It made sense. He was in their VIP lounge, even if it was just to put a wall between him and everything else in the gala. He had been standing alone, so purposely so. but linked back into two guests. One was an electric blue stallion with a sloppy dark blue mane. The other, an attractive gold-colored mare with amber eyes and a sucking bright orange mane. He knew these two. He paid for months of their paycheck tonight. More wasted bits. Not that it mattered anymore. Prince Blueblood! The female half of the duo held to grace to bow, and elbowed her companion, saying, "What a surprise to see you here!"
"Oh, I suppose it is,"
he replied, injecting a bit of his old self into the flying spirits. One must look good after all, even one felt like barnyard shit. "I'm Spitfire," the mare kept her amiable tone. "And this is Soren. Are you—" She looked around, but only half-heartedly. "Are you waiting for anyone? If you want, we could get Captain Thunderhead or Rangy Storm."
"What isn't necessary?"
It wasn't sure to see either of the senior flight leaders. "Hey!" Soren spoke up with a familiar grin. "You just see the performance? What did you think?" Blueblood shrugged, the drink half finished and half warm in his gut, granting him a comfortable indifference. Normally, he would have showered the performers with praise, regardless of whether he meant it or not. Courtly life had taught him well to only speak ill of others behind their back.
"It did the job," he replied. "The crowd liked it."
"Well," Spitfire seemed a bit surprised by the answer. She shared a quick look with Soren, before turning her eyes back on the prince. "Did you like it?"
"I said it did its job,"
Blueblood repeated. The Wonderballs weren't here at the gala to impress him. They were here to impress the guests. "You still haven't answered the question," Spitfire pressed, boldly too, since he was starting to get on his nerves. Wonderbolt or not, that wasn't particularly wise. "What you got there?" Soren asked, changing the question, gesturing to the drink. Before Blueblood could answer, he wasn't even sure what he was drinking, just willing to make an answer up. He noticed a duo of photographers hovering close by. Clearly, they were Pegasi. Soren Spitfire noticed it too, and had decency to bless a bit of the unwanted attention. There was a line of guests waiting to have their picture taken with the famous young Wonderbolt duo, impatient guests. Yet the photographers were wary of interrupting when the two were presidents of certain royal company. Even a little drunk, Blueblood put things together. Seeing all three staring at them, one of the photographers got a bit bold and tried to step in. "Excuse me, if we could just—"
"Leave us,"
Blueblood ordered, suppressing a grin until the two Pegasi flew back out to find other Wonderbolts to corral. Spitfire and Soren gave an audible sigh of relief, and smiled at him in thanks. It was ironic. He had hired those photographers too. The thought actually dressed up a genuine laugh at the sullen prince. "Thanks," Soren said, scratching the back of his mane. "We haven't had a minute to ourselves all night."
Blueblood asked. "You're all quite famous."
"I hate parties like this," Spitfire explained with a grin, suggesting that maybe he too. And the truth was, now, he kinda did. Or at least this one specific gala. "I mean, yeah, we're famous, but our fans are out there." She pointed to the gardens. "Not in here." It took Blueblood a second to realize she wasn't pointing at the gardens. She was pointing past them, out into the streets of Canterlot beyond. He turned his head to gaze out there. Slowly, he returned to Soren and Spitfire. "You want to get out of here?" Spitfire asked, and Soren cried quickly.
"Yes, why not?"
Wonderbolts or not, he was a proud and noble prince of Equestria. A sense of place was beneath him. Blueblood took a certain perverse pleasure in going inside anyway. He had heard of such establishments, dives and pubs and gathering places for riffraff. It wasn't quite as scandalous as entering a house of ill repute, but it was far worse than he had ever dared to do before. No doubt the tabloids could be all Twitter with the news. Ha! As if. Soren and Spitfire had sent there to get Wonderbolt's uniforms, and thrown his highly exclusive diner jacket into the bushes outside. No one dared question any of them. They had just walked out of the party. Just walked out. Blueblood still couldn't believe it. Leaving the castle grounds had, at first, filled him with a certain trepidation. Canterlot was a clean city, but there was more than a few ways to get truly dirty out here. There were also any servants or guards to call on, unless wanted to count the two Wonderbolts themselves, both of which had some military training. It took a while, but finishing off another drink had calmed his nerves enough to relax more properly. He had all but reared when Spitfire suddenly jumped up and tousled his mane. It pressed his mane to better hide his identity. It was shocking, scandalous, improper. His perfect mane was one of his finest features, not that he liked to discriminate. His horn was number 1, of course, but all of his other features were equally perfect and all tied in second place.
Now, you're ready to hit the town,
The Wonderbolt declared, elbowing playfully.
Hey, this place!
Soren declared as he approached the business. They delved into the merchant district, not the seedy part, mind you, the new money rich part of Canterlot. The bar wasn't even particularly lowbrow. It was just so unaristocratic. It catered to the rich and middle class working ponies. There were social stratas below the proper landed nobility. Getting inside was actually due to the Wonderbolts, who the security ponies recognized. They did not even recognize their beloved prince. Blueblood wasn't even sure he was more shocked or disgusted by this. Even a little thrilled. Anonymity was so alien. They paid to just have a private booth. After that, he offered to pay for the drinks. He was rich after all. It wasn't like it was mattered. But no one would remember the money he threw away tomorrow. They began with a round of the house's most expensive vintage cognac. Soren and Spitfire were full of stories of their years flying together. They attended Young Flyers Camp together, and their parents had put them into the same class in the Get to Flyers program. Soren, from a middle family in Cloudsdale, had entered the Territorial Air Guard for a time to get into the Wonderbolts. Spitfire, from a richer family, leaned in from a tutor and became one. They met again in the Wonderbolts boot camp and became inducted in consecutive years. Now they flew together, living their dream. Oh, they flew together all right, if my Soren and Spitfire ship is true. After listening to them, Blueblood wished he had a story like that. As much as he racked his brain, he simply didn't. He'd been tutored since he was a foal. He really neither had prayers or friends. The only colleagues he had were the other secretaries and ministers of the royal household. He thought instead about telling Auntie's story about Princess Celestia. Auntie was the one with the interesting and eternal life. Either he could make something up, change some names around, and before he could, however, he noticed the two Wonderbolts glancing back at the door. A cyan blue Pegasus in a gala dress had somehow managed to talk, or bull her way inside. She was Spitfire's size and body type, but clearly a few years younger. Her dress, a rainbow-colored affair, had gotten dirty from the descent from the castle to Canterlot. Barely white cloths had now streaked with bits of brown and black.
It's,
Soren clearly remembered his filly, but not her name.
Rainbow Dash, I think.
Spitfire corrected him with frantic ease.
I guess he followed us?
Wonderbolt turned to Blueblood.
Is it alright if...
He shrugged. The 2 Pegasus or 3 didn't matter. Starless hell, that may become his new motto. Spitfire got up and hustled over to greet the younger mare. The filly seemed relieved not to make her little trek in vain, and pointed back at her booth. Spitfire seemed to invite her over. Blueblood couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the look of absolute adulation and fangirl-like pleasure that this new Pegasus radiated.
Another gala reject.
He couldn't help but think.
Like all of us here, I suppose. Getting cute, isn't she?
Soren leaned over to the post table to whisper. Blueblood could only stare at the Wonderbolt. A grin found his lips.
Spitfire is, I thought.
Soren laughed easily. So damn easily.
Not her.
He leaned back to tuck his legs under him in his seat.
Rainbow Dash.
Gotta remember that. Soren muttered to himself.
Until he's sick of names. I don't see how you could forget, he drolly replied. She's named after her color scheme.
A few seconds later, and this Rainbow Dash was seated opposite. Spitfire having keenly switched seats and size. She introduced herself, her childlike glee for the Wonderbolts dissipating a bit, as she reached out to shake its hooves.
So, you're the prince, huh?
She asked, giving him a hard stare, like it was some otherworldly space pony.
I am the Prince of Equestria, yes.
Blueblood replied, glancing at the Pegasus' hoof with some disdain. She was hardly the most ladylike of mares, but considering the company and the circumstances, he shrugged and brusquely shook his hoof with her own.
Nice to meet ya!
The multicolored filly took back, quite firmly.
I'm Rainbow Dash, future Wonderbolt, and one of the elements of harmony. But you probably already knew about that part.
Oh yes, of course, he lied.
This was one of the elements of harmony?
Of course he knew about the elements, in a general sense. He hadn't actually been told about the bearers of them. Or if he had probably forgotten. It didn't seem like it mattered. It had nothing to do with him or his tedious work, and the elements themselves were Auntie's pet project. Sort of assumed that the 6 mares they were bonded to had been kept somewhere close by for training, or something. Deployment. It was strange seeing one as, well, as a mare. And if this one was at the gala, then there were others as well. Could the elements be the answer to his problem? It had to be something to consider. Blueblood's attention wandered for a bit, as Daz regaled her 2 idols with chatter about rain booms and chasing lightning, an exotic weather phenomenon. It was typical Pegasi chat. Kind of annoying, and naturally, since he doubted any of them would appreciate him gibbering on about unicorn magic. There was some interesting anecdotes behind and between the boasting, but Blueblood just let himself relax. Another round of drinks, and then 2 more, held her at respect. They all even had a good laugh when Dash downed about 200 bits worth of Royal Stables brandy in a single gulp, leading to much coughing and repeating the services of, "I can handle it, it's cool." It was so mundane and pedestrian. But the prince couldn't help but marvel that there was a certain intoxication, not just to the actual physical intoxication, but to being so carefree. A dozen paparazzi could burst in, cameras flashing, and he wouldn't bat an eye laughing in their faces. None of it mattered, and he was starting to wonder if that was really such a bad thing. "Hey, Blueblood!" Sora pounded himself on the table. "Let's hear something from you, man! Story! Story! Yeah!" Daz quickly joined in, also stomping a Gold Slipper hoof. "Let's get a story for the prince!" Spitfire just smiled at him. "Come on! You know you want to."
You want a story, is that it?
He didn't really have many options. He didn't have any tricks to tell of. He didn't think anybody would be excited to hear about backroom deals or political scheming or map-making. "Sorry! Sorry! Sorry!"
If you insist, if you insist.
He held out a hope for some silence. His thoughts were already a bit murky. Cheering sexy just made it worse. He did have one semi-good story to his name.
Do any of you know where the Galloping Gala was all?
The 3 Pegasi returned questioning stare.
I suppose not, Blueblood continued with a sigh. The islands all to the south, tropical islands, equatorial.
He shook his head, trying to focus.
Anyway, some Pegasi wanted permission to go down there to collect wild cloud samples. They came to me for money to fund the trip, since...
He tapped his flank and the compass rose there.
It was on the no-fly list. I got things together and went down myself. I thought of it as a vacation, a chance to relax on the beach. Far from Canterlot, far from Monty. All the Pegasi did the actual work.
He smirked at that.
There was one mare, though.
He looked longing at the ceiling.
On that last day down there, she came to the beach. We talked and had a few drinks, ate exotic fruits. We then sat in the water and made love like sea ponies. That...
The prince sighed.
Well, that was a good day. Why couldn't this day be that day?
Well, tell us more! I'm sorry. It's just that I have expected him to start singing Summer Days. He stared into his drink, his voice becoming quiet over and over again. He paused, noticing the beet red blessing of the mare opposite, hiding her cheeks behind her hooves. Sora was chuckling to himself, clearly having enjoyed the story. Spitfire leaned over, cleared his throat. Well, I think it's romantic. She gave him a teasing look. In the water. You guys! Dash suggested. Come on! Man, there's the way to go, Sora boasted, holding up his drink. Nothing like it. Blueblood snorted insistently. Pegasi. Live for that moment, man. Sora spit off his drink and set it down on the table, grinning broadly all the while. No regrets!
Live like there's no tomorrow?
The noble pony asked, staring across the table, then to his side, at the 3 accomplice flyers. Shook his head.
And what if there's literally no tomorrow?
He asked.
Then.
If there is no tomorrow, Rainbow Dash spoke up, despite her embarrassment. She put her hose on the table, cheeks still kind of blushing. Then you can just do whatever you want today. A rose-colored eye started over to Sora sitting next to her. Sounds kind of fun, actually. The Honorable caught the stare and grinned cheekily.
You know what?
The Prince of Equestria made up his mind. He knows Spitfire now.
There wouldn't
be any objections there, it seemed.
I think you're right.
You'll be seeing rainbows, oh, oh. Equestria girls were kind of magical. Boots on hoops, bikinis on top.
A white hoof hovered, gently turning off the radio. A second layer, and a bed-headed Blueblood sat straight up. A glance to his side didn't reveal any company. Everything was the same, not even a hangover. Everything was the same. He ran his hose through his hair. Blueblood laughed and laughed and laughed.
Yes! Good morning, Captain Lot!
Hopping out of the bed with a spring of step, he pulled over the curtains to get a good look at the morning. What a beautiful, carefree morning today was. Today was a day. A fresh new day of infinite possibilities and no consequences. Ringing the bell for his chambermaids, he waited for them with almost a giddy smile.
Light touch!
He pointed to the blue-coated mare. Right.
Just a quick brush over, just to get the knots. I'm going natural today.
But sir, Light Touch was very protestant. I told you,
It doesn't matter.
he said that with almost dash-like glee. He really had to thank that little filly sometime.
Just a quick brushing.
If you insist, sir, Light Touch relented. And if Blueblood was mistaken, he actually caught Sandy smiling a bit too. Perhaps his mood was infectious?
Hello, Auntie. Hello, Auntie.
He greeted the princesses and dour household ponies around the table. He singled out one princess in particular.
Quite the morning today. I don't think I've seen the sun this radiant in years.
Oh, why, thank you, Blueblood. Celestia took the compliment. With due decorum, while still seeming fairly pleased. Taking his seat, he held his proper place staring at him. The old unicorn looked lost for words.
Before you ask,
Blueblood gleefully held a hoof up to cut the old advisor off.
I'm looking forward to the gala tonight. Yes, I did hire the Cabaret Chamber Orchestra to play for us, and I've heard they registered the entry to the Princess and Sun's Light, and it's a wonder to behold.
Not only the servant was within speaking distance before even she got there, he continued,
Tea, with milk and ginger, nothing else. I'm going out this morning.
Are you sure? This time, to his surprise, the kissing came from Luna. It was also spoken a little more loudly. What do you mean? She repeated more quietly. You are? The dark alicorn gave a curious look. You never did so before. That's quite true.
Things change,
Blueblood assured them, laughing softly at his own private joke.
Things change.
The song and dance before the gates of Canterlot was half finished when the carriage rolled up. This was no ordinary means of conveyance, however. Studded with jewels and glittering, swirling, interlaced rivers and streams, and imported from halfway across the country. It was long enough to carry a dozen ponies or more with room to spare. A cloud of gas sucked the air from the various revelers about to enter the castle grounds, and every head and every pair of eyes turned to stare. Royal guards, dressed in expensive tuxedos, hurried to flank the doors of the royal carriage. A cream-colored leg emerged forth, teasingly, tantalizingly, sporting a pair of sparkling slippers that probably cost more than most ponies made in a year. It was followed soon after by a pony of Pop herself, Sapphire Shores. No mere dress would do for the sensation, and instead she appeared in an intricate French maid outfit, as saucy as it was ridiculously overpriced. Tiny diamonds caught the light of the lace filigree as the pony superstar emerged, lighting her up to stare at the universe. A step behind her, Blueblood reveled in the scene he was making. Gone was the proper dinner suit. Instead, his flanks scintillated with rhinestones, silver spurs on his cowboy boots jingling. He expressly purchased the most gaudy, tacky, inappropriate, and expensive ensemble in 8,000 miles. His blue silk scarf and cowboy hat completed the utterly atrocious look. Sapphire Shores loved it. Further proof in Blueblood's mind that he had done well in picking something truly terrible. The effect could not be argued with. 100 ponies stood, stunning, staring at the pair. The spotlight hadn't been stolen. It had been put in a safe, onto a key, the key had been buried, and the house had been built over it. But nothing at all compared to the look of shock on Auntie Celestia's face when she saw the duo walk through the gate. Priceless, beyond priceless. Blueblood chose that moment to propose to the pony of Pop. Let her be the princess of Pop! Sapphire was the perfect partner in crime. She didn't even mind when, accepting, they began to make out right in the center of the royal oratory.
Dang!
Well, you gotta make an impression. Trixie, remind me, if I'm ever stuck in an eternal time loop like this one, actually do the sensible thing and try to figure out a way out of it. No. Go find Rosario Dawson and make out with her in front of the entire country. No! Blueblood began the day with a banquet. No, not just a banquet, a feast. He began the day with a feast. When he asked what he wanted for breakfast, after giving a moment's thought, the esteemed prince asked, I don't know. One of everything you can make, I suppose. The table had been momentarily stunned silent, broken only by very uncomfortable laughter. No, really, Blueblood repeated. One of everything. One or two studied protesters aside, together with a, yes, of course I'll pay for it. No, auntie, it won't all go to waste. The table was soon labeled with every treat imaginable. Those that were not freshly produced by the castle staff were brought from pastry shops and high-class establishments in the city proper. Blueblood didn't mind waiting. It wasn't about the food, it was the spectacle. You guys will never believe what this song just started playing in my head. No doubt suspecting that her nephew was intending to indulge in the family tradition of epic trolling. Celestia had just stuck out long enough to grasp the extent of his madness. She had even partaken in a few freshly arriving treats, seeing as if something of a challenge to keep up with him. For an hour or more, the two royals played a deadly game of caloric chicken, to race lines of cholesterol levels and pride on the line. Blueblood even considered a point of discussing gluttonous pride to outlast Equestria's immortal princess of the sun. Eventually, minus the servants, only one pony remained at the table. Auntie Linda had remained silent the entire time, watching as her sister and nephew gorged themselves like the ancient hedonists of old. Despite normally turning in to rest after a long night of guarding the moon, Luna remained silent even after Celestia left. Blueblood began to wonder if she was simply fascinated by seeing one pony stuff himself on such a vast array of sweets. He hadn't even seen her eat any herself. Rather disgusting, isn't it? Finally, the Princess of the Moon speaks. Allow me to disagree, he replied, raising his voice to ensure she could hear him. Held a bit of a frosty crown confection. These cupcakes, as they're called, are quite delicious. We are referring to your behavior. Luna's voice projected easily across the table. He knew that spell. It is rather atrocious. All in the eye of the beholder, he countered, using the same spell to project his voice. Finally pulling home, he scooped up a dollop of cream with a fresh strawberry, placing it on his tongue an indulgent grin. Luna's face crunched up in distaste. So a second later, she did tentatively levitate over a small round breakfast treat. A donut they were called. Blueblood had never condescended to try one before. That one had sprinkles. Gluttony is a vice we have seen consume more than a few ponies, Luna had told him, knowing at the donut experimentally. As always, he was prim and proper, the perfect princess. Albeit loud, she was old-fashioned, like he had been. I'm not worried about that anyway, he assured her, folding over a donut of his own and eating one bite. We find that hard to believe. In all experience, you appear to care a great deal about what others think of you. Luna took a small bite of her pastry, smiling as she found it to her liking. Our sister in particular. Blueblood frowned at the observation. Yes, well, he glanced away, to try and find something new to try. Not anymore. Luna was silent for a time. She finished her donut. So you say, she replied, standing up to leave. The guards quickly moved to flank her as well. Yet, she added over her shoulder, we can't help but find your desire for attention rather pathetic. We will leave you to your repast. Blueblood followed the alcor with his eyes, before staring at a plate of seed cakes, layered in rainbow colors and jam. He willed a fork to take a bite, and found his audience, with his appetite, gone. Raising a napkin to the corner of his mouth, he wiped it for smuts of jelly. What did old bat know, anyway? Birds, Blueblood. Proper place, you look well. Yes, thank you. I trust you are looking forward to this evening's gala. I heard you hired for the Canterlot Chamber Orchestra Company. I look forward to the rendition of entry of this Princess in the Sun's Light. As do I, Chamberlain, as do I. Blueblood tried to eat as usual. Tea, with milk and ginger, always helped to wake him up. As for the rest, he still had little appetite for much of anything. Not that he wasn't hungry. It was just the same as every morning. He just couldn't quite look at the plates of food the same way. Out of curiosity, he begged over his servant and requested an identical serving to what Celestia had. Nails and apples he already derided. It wasn't like he hadn't hurt to try. As things wound down, proceeding as they always did, the prince couldn't help but glance in the direction of his other aunt. the one he had never known, the one who had only entered his life of the court last year, who had done less than that, as few saw her outside of her nightly duty raising and lowering the moon.
Auntie.
Blueblood spoke up, sensing it was almost out of time. Celestia set her eyes on him. It wasn't her he meant to address.
Auntie Luna.
He said again, and the Dark Princess gave him a nonplussed look, unused to being addressed when her sister was present.
What's it like to be immortal?
Next to her, Celestia raised an eyebrow at the strange question. What is there hosed against her chest? And lowered her eyes. Why are you asking us that?
I guess the bigger question is,
Blueblood continued, raising his chin.
when you're destined to live forever, what do you do with your life? I mean, besides what you have to, how do you live it?
Before, it took a second or two for Luna to really determine how to respond. One simply does, she answered, standing up to leave. He watched her go inside. That really wasn't the response he had hoped for.